What's up? Welcome to my Iron Builder recap video. We're going to be looking at all the different builds I built during my Iron Builder, what my initial reaction to the part was, some of the techniques I used, some of the thought processes I went through, and just looking at maybe Jonas's mocks, my mocks, see what went wrong. No, I'm just kidding. We'll just see how the round went, overview it, analyze it. It'll be fun. Let's go. So we started off the round with a live stream on Discord in the Iron Builder group chat where we revealed that we got this yellow piece, 9-volt in yellow train switch or something like that from the Lego train. It's such a strange piece. My initial reaction when it poured out of the bag was first, it was the color. It was like yellow. Okay. I was for some reason already thinking it was going to be a tan or dark tan piece, basically because I had been given two different sets to review through Rebel Lug. Both were tan sets. I didn't know if those were like hints that like, you're gonna need more tan, bud. And I was absolutely the wrong idea, although I did end up using tan in at least one of my builds. But yellow, it was very shocking. I was like, okay, yellow, I don't have a ton of that color, and it's going to be interesting to build with yellow as a main color that you're featuring in a whole bunch of different builds. Then I looked at the actual piece, and I was actually really excited about the shape of the piece because, first of all, I didn't even own one of these 9-volt switches. I don't know why I keep saying 9-volt. I think that's the Bricklink name or something. It's not. It's just a switch. Like it's a switch, a toggle for like the switch track on a train track. But I didn't own any of these because I don't have any of the Lego trains. It was not even in my building radar. So that was exciting because that means I got to create a whole bunch of brand new stuff with this piece, look for brand new techniques and connections for it. So I was excited for that. And then I really got into it and realized that there's all sorts of weird quirkiness about this piece, such as only one, technically 3 stud connections, 1 bar connection, but the bar connection's offset from the stud connection. It's just so wacky. But my initial reaction to the piece was, yeah, it was like, oh gosh, and well, this is going to be fun. And then I immediately went to work for like 4 or 5 hours and didn't even get a build with the part right away. So that was both nice but also scary because I knew Jonas was jumping into builds probably right away and I was like off working. But it did give me time to, in between work stuff or on my lunch break, I wrote down a ton of different ideas that I took a couple with me to work and just was like looking at it. How can I connect these in different ways just with the parts that I already have in my mental Lego space. So yeah, that was like the initial reaction to the part. Also, side note, based on the reveal during our live stream at the beginning, I saw Jonas's face when he pulled out the part as well. And that gave me a little bit of confidence because I sort of felt like, oh, we might have a level playing field here. Because I was actually as scared of him going into the round because he's such a great builder. And I was like, I don't even stand a chance. I'm going to be fighting an uphill battle. But I saw that look. And he had just talked about when he got the Duplo part in one of his previous Iron Builders, he got a little angry afterwards, after he initially poured it out. So I was like, well, I may have a chance here, I don't know. Might be close. Because honestly, what a ridiculous part. So build number 1 was the map and compass. I still have the compass built here, you can see it. The rest of the map's already destroyed, sorted, or like scavenged for parts for other builds. But yeah, so this was one of my initial thoughts to use the piece for was a dial or some kind of gauge, let's say like on a compass, how I thought about the pin, or like on a dial or something like that, because it has this pointy aspect to the piece that you could like twist and turn. So yeah, compass was right there up at the top. I just didn't know how to present it. But funny enough, the very first thing I built was not the compass. The very first thing I built was the Star Wars ships, the Naboo in one starfighter, the micro scale one. I started piecing that together. I had a few different versions of that. Some of that smaller detailed stuff takes a little while to come up with the final design for it or to get it just right, especially when it's so small. So I spent like an hour or 2 on that initially when I got back from work, and I just needed to set it aside because I was like, I know I'm not going to finish this whole build or how to present this starfighter tonight. I really need to do something that I already have an idea formed for, and that was the compass. So I started with the compass, worked on it, went through several different designs and color schemes first before I finally settled on it. Funny enough, it's hard to get hard to build circles really easily in Lego. Oh, who'd have thought on a square base building system. I also wanted to build a 3-dimensional map, which I ended up doing, but by the first night I had the compass done, and I had the frame of the map done, and so I was happy with my progress. By the next night I should post it, so the next day I was planning on finishing that whole map. So day 2 came, I started chugging out that map, and I really lost sight halfway through this build. I didn't like how the trees were turning out. I almost ran out of all my dark green brick. I was literally putting together every single plate I had. But when I finally got the mountains done on that, I was happy with it. And then I had to present it well, and I was like, how am I going to present this well? And I actually was lucky to have some random boards I had cut for a different project in the house I ended up not using, that I just laid out as to simulate like a picnic table that this map is sitting on. And so then I took the picture of the map there, and I think that really turned the color and the aesthetic of the whole framing of the map and the compass on this wood background, I think it turned out really nice for my first build. So I lost sight like halfway through, but then I think it finished out strong. Build number 2 was the N1 Starfighter Naboo hangar scene. I was happy to start on this one next because I already had the design for the spaceship basically finalized. I finished it up on day 2 and started the hangar. I did a lot of concept art searching on the internet to get ideas for how I was going to actually build the hangar, how accurate I wanted to go. I know I wanted to go with an immersive scene and maybe have a ship taking off. I ended up going with the external shot of the hangar rather than an internal looking out. And this is what I have left of it after scavenging and stuff. Basically, it used to extend out this way more, and then obviously I had like an overhang at the front over here. And the funny thing is, I obviously didn't, not obviously, but I did not have enough parts for as many starfighters as shown in the picture. So I used my handy dandy Photoshop skills, and I carefully moved them around and rearranged them so it looked, and then I just took like 3 or 4 pictures and then put them all together in the end with Photoshop. I could have built all the ships if I had the parts. It's just some of them were parts intensive. And I only had 2 paint cans for the actual starfighter, so I used like gray buckets for the other ones. Anyway, I'm really happy with the design of this spaceship, and I think the hangar turned out really nice. Took inspiration from Cost Bricks for the photography on the end of that one, using like paper underneath the green and then the blue paper for the sky background rather than like editing all that in post. I was pretty happy with this build. And it's a Star Wars build. I threw in a Star Wars build. Didn't expect to build a Star Wars build, but the piece lended to the shape of the ship. So there we go. Also, if you want to build your own Star Wars N1 Starfighter that I showed in this build, I have instructions on my Instagram. There's a little thing under there that you can click, and it's a tutorial all the way through if you want to build it yourself. Build number 3 was the big yellow door. I still have most of the actual door built, not all the overhead part with all the seed parts in it. That's obviously been taken away, and then all the greens and stuff. This was a fun build because I've never built like a giant door before, and it felt very Iron Builder strong to build something big like that. And I was like, I can do that. I have enough yellow bricks for that. And I'll add all the details. And I don't know, it was a lot of fun to build this. It was pretty straightforward in the actual build process. You can see the door is just like yellow and plates and tiles and bricks. The brickwork on the outside is probably the part that took me the longest. I actually ended up watching Mandalorian behind the scenes stuff because, here, let me grab a chunk of this that's breaking off. It's literally all 1x1 stud on the side bricks. I just had a ton of them from the pick a brick wall. It's alternated, so on this side you can hook all the tiles in for the brickwork. There's so many in here, and it was so tedious to do that. I was also an idiot at first and didn't have these plates that are locking these in, so it was like super unsturdy. And I was like, what am I doing? I can just lock them all together and it's going to be super sturdy, which I ended up doing. But I'm really happy with this build, and I was able to include Rolly, the little mouse in the bottom there. I really like doing the vines in the final photo. Pretty satisfied. I think a yellow door is a very bold door, and it's like has a lot of character to it. I'm sure people were saying I could have used the seed part elsewhere other than just the top of the door, like the door handle or like the knocker on the door, but ultimately I think I was very satisfied with this build. It may have been my favorite build of the whole round. It was enjoyable to build. I didn't have any problems building it, and I think I was very happy with the final results. Build number 4, I have none of it remaining because arguably it was my worst build, but also some argue that it was their favorite build. Very contradicting opinions I got on this build afterwards. I sort of felt forced into this build, but not really. It was kind of my own fault. I got some comments after my first 3 bigger builds that, hey, you should do some more minifig scale where you throw in a bunch of the seed part usage in all sorts of clever ways, which I was planning on doing stuff like that, just maybe not like this. But again, it was all my fault or it was my choice. But anyway, I already had a spider in the plan, doing a robot spider. I was going to have like a whole flock of robot spiders or a giant robot centipede, which would have been dope, except I think I would have been a millipede. I don't know how the legs, something about the legs. But I have a whole bunch of them, and they sort of look like, these pieces, so I was like, they're great legs. Just got to figure out a cool way. So I built this spider robot first. Had a little character with the eyes, so I liked it. I was like, oh, let me build a whole scene for this and just throw in a whole bunch of different stuff. I'd been wanting to build some cool new bookshelves, and then I came up with the ingenious clock. I guess I do have a piece left, because this is my favorite thing I built the entire round, even though I said the door. The door as a whole was my favorite, but this clock, this grandfather clock, I think it's the favorite thing I built the whole round. The parts usage, I felt like a skilled, right? Anyway, I think what really flopped on the spider build was the composition and the storytelling. The background was the part I had the hardest time presenting, and I don't know. I liked the techniques and stuff I used in it. It just didn't come together fully for me, and I think that kind of showed to other people as well. One fun thing though is I got to use Baby Yoda to help hold up the chandelier and do stuff like that. I was really just looking around. I was like, what do I have quickly that I could just hold the chandelier up in the air? Baby Yoda, he looks like the right height. Let me just stick this plate on his head and I'll hold the chandelier right over the mock that I need. All right, build number 5.
Introducing the Chicken Pen Pinball Play Toy, or as we like to call it, the Chicken Pinball. This new product combines the joy of the farm and the joy of play all in one complete package. With a cluck cluck here and some pinball there, never have a boring moment again with Chicken Pinball.
Build number 5 was a lot of fun for me. Chicken pinball! And I made a little video for it and everything. That was a lot of fun. This came about because I knew I wanted to do a function in one of my builds, because I think that just helps elevate you during the round of Iron Builder. It's like, you better have something with a function in there, or something extra creative in there, I think, that's a little outside of the normal mock building medium. So I knew I wanted to do that, and the piece shape worked well, in my opinion, for a flapper, or whatever you call these, a flipper or flapper. Just the thing you hit the ball with. I'm actually missing the ball right now in this chicken pinball machine. But so I initially started with the base, and you can see this actually comes out of the actual barn part, because I needed to work on the functions separately. You can see it still works. Most of it's all still together, actually. The initial model I still have partly built of the base was just this brown slab. I built the whole thing out of brown, and it was great because it worked, but it was just so... I sort of lost focus halfway through this build, because I was like, I gotta add color, I gotta add character to this build. It can't just be a giant brown pinball machine. Ugh. But one thing that I did have in the brown that I left out of the final model was this motor. Oops, I broke. I was gonna have this turning in the build, but I ended up thinking, I was like, how is that actually gonna work? It's not gonna work as a pinball. It's such a small space already that I just need to not have a motor. The function itself, it will work. Whoop! That's another thing too. I had to edit out a lot of stuff because this pinball machine does work, but you have to be very gentle with it. Anyway, let's get into the rest of the build. So, once I had built this initial pinball, I decided to build the rest. Obviously, that's how it kind of goes, isn't it? I had never built a barn before, and the brown transition, I redid it with all this dark tan stuff in there. Like, it's not beautiful. Could be way better, but I think that was my pivot to getting out of that brain dead moment of how do I turn brown into a mock. And I was like, it can be mud, but I got to add some detail on there. I'll add chickens. I'll build a barn scene, add the green on the outside, and really make it pop. And I think ultimately it ended up working out. I had a lot of fun building the barn because I'd never, like I said, never built before. One thing that I actually took out of the final model is you can see in here I have a I have a drawer actually. I built a drawer into this with extra balls. Whoops, that broke. But I felt, and I had a handle using the seed part on this drawer like this. But I think I had to be real with myself that I'd just seen Jonas's build where he had a drawer like that, or drawer handles, and I would be straight up copying him by putting that on mine, and it just didn't feel right. So I ended up leaving the drawer with the handle out of the build. Even though it would have added another seed part usage to the build. I was like, I don't need to copy his stuff to be able to succeed in this round. That was a lot of fun to build at the end. It turned out way better than I expected in the sense that this is something I had never really tackled before. Especially under pressure, like a function slash a theme that I'd never even built before. And even though it wasn't perfect, I still stayed up super late and finished a little advertising video that I watched a bunch of Fisher Price ads from like the 80s or whenever those were filmed. And at the end of the day, I really liked this build. But honestly, it also wasn't my favorite build. I think photography could have been better at the end. It could have been better built on the actual pinball portion of it. Also, in case you wondered, here's how the function works. It's just a rubber band pushing axles, which push these things up top that these just plug right into. Blep, 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 blep. Build number 6. I was starting to feel burned out. Had an idea for a cool desert build I'd found some concept art for, or Grant had sent me some concept art because Grant was feeding me ideas along with other people. Like my parents were just constantly giving me ideas, and it's just like, oh my goodness, I have a list of stuff I need to choose from. Grant was like, dude, go big or go home. And I said, all right, I'll go big, and I'm already home, so why not? So I went with this crazy big concept, and at least for me, building in 1 or 2 days. Whoops. That was pretty crazy for me, honestly. But side note, something crazy happened right here. So day 2 of building this, or no, day 1, because like 2 deals. It took 2 days for every build. Day 1, I got email. My lug bulk has arrived. Guess what? The guy in my lug lives like 10 blocks from me. Drive down there, get my lug bulk. Had a whole bunch of parts, boosted me. So I had a bunch of like tan tiles, tan windows that I used. And like tan 1x2 plates, the new rounded ones with the holes in them. I was like, dude, I just got a giant bonus. I didn't have to bricklink these or anything. So that was awesome. That really just fueled this build. Not that I didn't already have a ton of tan for this, but like I was able to use some of those techniques in this build. Like you could see the windows and stuff. People commented on the different things. This was crazy fun to build. And it got like really big really fast. I just went on the general layout that I saw in this concept art. I was like, okay, tower here, kind of arch entry there, building. The rest of it was just all me. I don't know. I had a lot of fun. I started going like hyper detailing down here. You can see I did some like snot tiles and stuff. And then I realized, holy crap, if I do this kind of detailing throughout the whole thing, I won't be finished with this in less than a week. So I kind of had to go simpler up from there. Kind of hid some of that. I mean, it's cool detailing, sure, but like, there's no way I'm going to carry that across the whole thing. I was pushing for parts at the end, like, oh my gosh, I'm out of tan masonry. Maybe I've overkilled the masonry bricks in this build. I feel like a lot of people overkill with masonry bricks nowadays. I'm a culprit, but still, it was also very dry. I mean, it's the desert, but like the build was very dry most of the way through until I added the green, then it really popped. A thing about this is I got a few comments about it, and I even thought it myself as, wow, this is more of a cool mock, less of an Iron Builder build because the peat isn't that prominent. And sure, I used it up here in the portcullis, I think is what it's called. And then I used it in like a lemon tree that was right here. I used it as like a hookah. I used it as this little carrier thing that like slaves carry their prince or king with. Those were fun details. I thought all that stuff was fun. And sure, it wasn't the like the subject of the build, but I liked throwing it in everywhere, and maybe it could have been better. But honestly, I was happy with how the lemon tree turned out. And I included a whole bunch of different details, like I have a little forge back in there, like an anvil. That's the iron forge, or this is the Iron Builder like symbol that they have everywhere. And then I have like, nobody commented about this guy right here, by the way. There's this straight up guy with a knife with a black shadow just at a door. I mean, it's just a Star Wars fig, but he's like obviously about to murder somebody in their house, and I got 0 comments concerned about that, and said they were worried about the guy looking at the frog smoking a hookah. Like, bruh, get your priorities right, am I right? These palm trees were really fun to build because I had a ton of these like brown fez pieces that I bought several years ago in lug bulk. Oh, I broke it. And I was finally able to include those in a build. Somebody said this was like, wow, you get Mark of Falworth to build that build for you? No, I didn't get Mark of Falworth to build my build. Sure, I looked at some of his mocks for a little inspiration, but it wasn't even for this. It was after I'd built most of it. I was like, how did he do that foliage? And I was like, why did I even... You know, I get a lot of inspiration from everywhere, but this was mainly just all me, and then plus Mark of Falworth, very cool builder. Cool stuff, but... excuse me while I build my own stuff. Thank you very much. Had a lot of fun with this build at the end of the day. Photographed it on a white background. Kind of bright. Kind of cool. I don't know. On to the next one. Build number 7. Micro scale castle scene. This was the idea I had even before the round. I knew I was going to do a micro scale. Whatever the piece I got, it was going to be a castle slash village slash something like that. And so immediately when I got the piece, when I was thinking through stuff, was it the night of it was either the first night or the second night, I made a bricklink order of a whole bunch of different yellow parts that I thought would be good for a castle. And so I was just waiting until those arrived, and then I would build this build. The problem is, this bricklink order got delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed, and I was so worried that it wouldn't even come in time that this build kept getting pushed further and further back. And then they finally arrived undisclosed. Like, I got a message that it wasn't coming for a week, and I was like, well, I'm gonna have to do something else. And instead they showed up that day, and I was like, what is wrong with shipping sometimes, you know? Anyway, I was very happy that arrived, so I was able to build this castle. And this is very inspired by, like, I don't know, you could say like the Celestial City, or the what is the one from Wizard of Oz? That one, but also different and unique. I like the blue contrasting with the yellow a lot. I used some flowers in here and everything. So I liked this design, and I was like, how am I going to build this into a scene? I got to do some kind of forced perspective, right? And that's what I ended up doing. A whole bunch of different tree sizes. I still have like a ton of, like, I built so many trees. I have to sort all that still. That was a lot of trees. I was very happy with the composition of the final photo on this one. Also used my blue and green paper again, and ended up going with like a cave framing. There were 2 separate different depths of bricks being built up for that. I actually used chunks of the old hangar that I'd ripped apart to help hold those up. Actually, the mountains in the very background of this picture are just the mountains ripped off of the book, or sorry, the map from build 1. Very happy with how this build turned out. It's very portrait mode. I mean, it's a portrait photo. I think it would work well as like a phone background. I don't know. I was very happy with this one. I was almost so satisfied with this. I was going to end it as my last build. But I was like, I still have like a day and a half left. I think I should do an 8th, because that spider build was really worrying me. I was like, if I can get something that's at least better than the spider build that a judge may pick as his top 7 builds, then it's worth it. So the 8th build is a complicated affair. I ended up actually with 1 night to do this, because the next day I would go to work, and while I was at work the contest would end, so technically I didn't have 2 days for the 8th build. But it's like, did I want to stay up till 3 a.m. to finish a build and still go to work? And I was like, not really. I tried concepts, I tried building stuff, I was literally going to give up, and then I was chatting with some people, Aaron and Jack, and they talked me into building something else. I had already ideas for it, and they just helped form it into my final build, which ended up being the perfume bottle with the sunflowers. I had the sunflower design built already. It was just, I didn't know how to present it without it looking really cheap, really lame. But first, let me show you my initial build idea was actually a Morse code. And so I built this Morse code. It even functions. So I was like, so I built that. And then I had this notepad that was gonna go with it, and the Morse code that spells out iron, I-R-O-N, iron. But and this technique that's like super janky, but it gets those lines in there like paper. A part of me just like, it didn't feel right. I didn't know how to present it perfectly. As a final build, it just felt weaker than the castle even. And I was like, I don't know if I want to have this as my final build. A notepad is sort of generic iron builder, this type of competition build. Not that it's bad, it's just not great. So then I was playing around with flowers. So these flowers, they went through a few different versions. I was like, how am I going to just have flowers in a vase? And I built a vase for them, and it didn't look great. That's when Aaron and Jack came in with their clutch advice, and they were just coaching me through stuff. They're like, you should make it a perfume advertisement. And I was like, you're absolutely kidding me, right? Like, I don't know. But I just went with it. I was like, dude, I'm going to do this as a joke. I'm not actually going to do it. I'll just humor them by doing what they say. And so I built this perfume bottle, went through a few iterations with these new clear pyramids that came in my bulk. Because that's such a nice textured, it's like a textured perfume bottle, you know? I don't know, that just seemed right to me. And I think it worked. And then they coached me through like, you gotta turn the flower just a little bit more. Just a little bit more to get the perfect advertisement feel. Because I was like, dude, how am I gonna present this? And it ended up working out, I think. And with the fancy French name of the perfume and the presentation of just a white background with the perfume bottle and the flowers just laying there. Essence of the sun or something like that is what it means. I was brain dead at this point, but with their coaching or mental support, I ended up with that final build. I think it maybe my weakest build, but also I'm not disappointed in it. I don't know. It didn't like fly that well. It just felt way out of my range. It didn't have like the personality of me built into it, but I think that was just because I was so tired. And at this point I went to work, was completely exhausted. It was a pretty close round, and that's all I could have hoped for. Also, here's a little before and after of my Lego space. Look, it's so nice, clean, and perfect. And then a tornado swept through the Lego room. Absolutely insane. And obviously, as you've seen, I've hardly even sorted any of the actual builds. Alright, I want to look over all of Jonas's builds and see what my initial reactions were. So he struck first with his Viking build, which absolutely knocked me off my seat. I was like, holy crap, I am doomed. That usage as the beard is really ingenious. The entire stand of it, it's so detailed, it's not too big. It's just presented so well. I think I really didn't like the axe, but other than that, the axe doesn't even matter when you see the rest of the build. I was like, well, just as I thought. I just need to build for the fun of it at this point, and whatever he builds, and if he wins, he wins. So I just kept on, and then his next build was the vegetable stand or the little market, and I absolutely love this build. I think this is one of my favorite builds of Jonas in a long time. Because there's so many details. This reminds me a lot of Marcus Robuller's mocks. It's just so detailed. There's stuff everywhere to look at. You don't even initially notice all the seed part usages, like the little the faces up on the telephone pole and everything like that. I don't know. I just really liked this build. Also, again, I was like, well, I'm out of my league. But you know, it's like Jonas seems like such a nice guy. That's like, I literally can't even complain because I get to see some of his mind and the stuff that he makes is just so cool, and it's inspiring to me even. It's like, it's less of a competition in the sense at that point. I was just like, this is just, we're building fun builds and we're both using the same part. Let's just have fun with it, you know? I tried to let the competition part of it get out of my head that like, oh, I'm gonna lose completely, but then his next one was his microscale fairground series, and honestly wasn't as impressed with this one. I like him. The functions in all three of them, I saw this was, it's his function build. I've seen him do that presentation style before with his Game of Thrones builds, which I loved all those, where it's like each has the same base, but they all have a function that's different. And I think my favorite of this one was the Ferris wheel. That was really clever. They seemed a little bit messy for microscale. Maybe that's just because I'm picky with microscale, but the overall presentation is great. It's just the subjects I think could have been better. Probably Jonas's weakest build. Still love to see it though. It gave me a little bit more hope, honestly. But then he came out with this painting a peacock build. And I was like, oh snap. I really like this build. The face on the peacock is perfect. That was on my lists. Not a peacock, but a bird face was definitely on my list of things to build. Never got around to it. Obviously didn't after I saw this as well. Some stuff seemed a little out of scale here, but I really liked it. The peacock using those leaves is really nice as well. Another thing that seems sort of generic for Iron Builder kind of things is paint and paintbrushes. Not to hate on it, I think the overall composition of this picture makes up for it, but it's another one of those Iron Builder things to look out for, much like my flowers later on. It's a very Iron Builder typical thing to do is flowers. The garage, Jonas's garage. This, I think, is my favorite build Jonas did, just because that book car, the library car, or van, or whatever it is, that is so nice. Using it as headlights. I was also on my list, but obviously I didn't even want to attempt after I'd seen this, because that's so well done. And using the book tile from the modular building, that was nice. The composition of the whole scene is super clean, and a lot of little details you can see into the focus shift is nice as far as presentation goes. Really like that build from him. And then he did his dragon puppet. The dragon puppet, I was not that big a fan of. I saw he tried to do a video, or he did a video showing it. Okay, I don't know what it is that I didn't like about it, because honestly it is impressive, especially in an Iron Builder, to build a marionette puppet and to have it function and actually work. Let alone throwing in a seed part. But I think it's just the teeth. While it's good parts usage, the teeth on the dragon threw me off. The rest of it is really well done. But again, it's like a different category. I don't know. It's just, it was different. I was excited to see this from him, but also a little confused. And then the final track. Oh, you have no idea how much I wanted Jonas to do all three of his Iron Builder parts. And I was so happy to see that he actually did it. And the radio in teal and yellow. Oof. Man, it just pops really nicely. And those tapes are just so classic. But I don't know. This was such a fantastic ending. I just couldn't help but like smile when I saw this. I was like, yes, he did it. He included the Duplo piece and the silver Technic piece and the new part. I thought it was funny that we both finished off with builds that used part in a circular pattern. His were inward for the speakers and mine were outward for the flowers. But yeah, overall, Jonas's builds, loved them. I think he was stronger in the first half. And, well, I don't know. He had stuff all the way through. He only did 7 builds, though. It's not bad. But, I don't know. I think it was really close. He had his weaker builds. He had his stronger builds. I think I had weaker builds and stronger builds. It was a very close match. I think it was a lot of fun, in my opinion. It felt a lot more like a fun build challenge, rather than like a serious competition neck and neck. Well, it was neck and neck, but like not like we weren't biting at each other's throats, you know? I think the judges had fair thoughts. I was surprised that I won all seed part usage and Jonas won all build quality from the judges, but it is what it is. And I can definitely see where he did better on presentation than me. That was actually my thought going into this, was I think my weakest point is my presentation. That's why I went out and bought new paper before this for presentation. I had my camera tethered to my computer to make editing streamlined and everything. But at the end of the day, I'm happy that Jonas ended up with his 3 win. He gets to go in the Hall of Fame or whatever it's called. Good for him. And maybe I'll compete again in the future if I can go through the Iron Forge. Maybe I won't. Either way, I had a fantastic experience. Had a lot of fun. I think we put on a good show, Jonas. And I would love to hang out with you and build some Lego if that ever even happened in the future sometime. But Cheers!